Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning. Welcome to the IC chat. Today is February 10th, 2022. My name is Ann Price. I'm going to be kicking it off today. Susan and Cheryl are going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking about partnerships and collaboration. So first, we're going to do introductions. So again, I'm Ann Price. I'm based here in Georgia in the Metro Atlanta area. I'm president of Community Evaluation Solutions. I've had my own business since 2004, so I'm living proof it can be done. I spent a lot of time working with community coalitions and collaboratives, working in areas like substance abuse, mental health, public health, all sorts of fun things. So Susan, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then Cheryl will go next.
Hey, I'm Susan Wolf. I have my own business, Susan Wolf and Associates, and we are located in Cedar Hill, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas. And most of my work is with health equity and educational equity projects. And I do a lot of collaboration and a lot of subcontracting as well. So I'll turn this over to Cheryl.
Great. Hi, excuse me, Cheryl Holm Hansen. I'm in Minnesota, and I have been doing evaluation work for almost 25, 30 years now. I have a consulting firm that I manage on my own, although I do a lot of work in partnership with other people, including both subcontracting and more equal partnership on projects. The other piece that I'm bringing to the conversation today is I'm also co-director of a second small business, the Midwest Center for School Mental Health, which is a legal partnership that I founded with someone else. So be able to talk a little bit about the differences between kind of collaborating through your own organization versus partnerships.
All right, so I'm going to start us off by talking about where to find collaborators. Of course, you're all attending the IC chat, so that's a great place to start. So let's talk about local. So my husband worked for Coca-Cola for 31-ish years, and one of the old CEOs had this I don't know, phrase they used all the time that was think local, act global. I'm not quite sure really what that means. But for me, my home base is Atlanta. We have a very active Atlanta AEA affiliate. So I would start there. If you have a local affiliate, that's great, get involved. If not, seek out other evaluators who happen to live in your area. That's a great place to find collaborators. I also think you can collaborate with university folks. Sometimes they think about evaluation a little differently, but that's also another place to find collaborators. Establish your home network for sure, but definitely leverage this virtual space that we're all living in to take advantage, not just connecting in the US, but internationally as well. So I talk about all the time that I'm pretty introverted, believe it or not, but I've been thinking in the last week or two how many people I've been able to meet because of all of these Zoom meetings, right? So I think my network has even, just exponentially expanded over the last couple of years. So take advantage of that virtual space to reach out nationally and internationally. I mean, Susan can tell you she's presented internationally already. I'm really excited because we're going to be going to the Canadian Evaluation Society in person this year. We presented virtually last year. And we're also looking at presenting at some international conferences and looking forward to connecting to our international peers. So think about that. So I want to tell you a little bit about how I connected with Susan. So we actually met at AEA, and I meant to look this up what year, I always forget, but we were on a roundtable session together. I always introduce myself as a community psychologist and evaluator, and that's how this all got started. So we connected there. I think we connected every time we saw each other at AEA. We would meet and drinks, and over time just got to know each other and really establish a relationship. So, you know, in Gail's Barrington's book, some of you may know, Consulting and Management, I think it's Startup from anyway, I'm butchering that title. Somebody put it in the chat if you don't know Gail's book, but she talks about how to establish a collaborative relationship. So when you first meet somebody, you wouldn't go on a date and then decide to get married. I mean, I guess you would if that's that really horrible reality TV show, but you know what I mean. You would slowly get to know them. So maybe you start with lunch, or like Susan and I did, we met at AEA and we started having drinks. You might want to, observe them presenting. What is their style? You want to get to know them as a person. You might even want to see examples of their work, maybe their resume or their CV. You really want to suss out whether or not you have similar interests, a similar work ethic, even a similar value system. So I think that shared values and that work ethic are really, really important. Susan and I have been working together a good time, a good many years now. I think we get along so well for a lot of reasons, and hopefully she doesn't mind me sharing this. We both come from a blue collar background. I think that's what really resonated with me. Like, oh, we have the same background. We're not necessarily like a lot of our peers. We've really had to get scrappy and figure out how to make the world work for us. We also have a commitment to equity and justice. We absolutely have each other's back. We tell each other the truth, like, no, I really don't like that logo very much. But we do cheerlead and support each other. And we work our, I'll just say, tushies off for sure. So we have that work ethic in common. So how do you ensure success in your partnerships? So you're going to hear a lot, all three of us talk today about communication when you're collaborating. And I would say, especially when you're collaborating with a friend, because to me, relationships are primary. I don't have a financial partner in my business for a reason. I've never seen that go well. Cheryl's going to talk a little bit more about that. But for me, again, relationships are primary. So how do we do that? We get clarity on who's doing what. Again, especially if you're subbing with a friend, we still do written contracts with each other, whether I sub with Susan or she subs with me, or we sub with other folks. We do written contracts that specifies who's doing what. You want to make sure you define your roles, who's going to answer the emails, who's going to answer the client questions, who runs meetings. I think it's really important to have that straight, and definitely stay in your lane when at all possible. So in order to ensure success, you want to communicate. And I would say, Susan, you can advance the slide. Don't let things fester. We've had relationships before, and sometimes, we get frustrated, like any relationship, right? You get frustrated with each other. It's really important that you hit that head on and, use those good I statements. I'm feeling X, blah, 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 right? But whatever you do not argue in front of the children, AKA the client, right? Don't bring that frustration to a client meeting. You want to talk about that with your peer for sure. So what about those situations when you absolutely have to collaborate? You're either, you're working with a group of people that you'd really rather not, or maybe you got put on a team. This certainly happened to me a few years ago when I was asked to join a Big team for a federal agency. It was an outside a firm, a large firm, not really known for evaluation. And this federal agency, the department wasn't very trusting of the evaluators. And I was asked to come on as kind of the evaluation expert. So it was awkward, right? They basically had to hire me. So what I did was really try to kind of clarify the roles, clarify my role. I really wanted to let them know that I was, not there to point fingers. I was really there to be positive, to be a positive a person on the team. So in that situation, or when you absolutely have to collaborate, again, clarifying roles, talking about those communication channels, getting a sense of the project history, what's kind of gone on in the past, that was really important in that situation that I was describing. And be sensitive to that it's awkward. And be very solution oriented. Try not to be, the negative Nelly. Don't let it get personal. Don't gossip or anything like that, but just try to be really positive. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan and let her take it from here.
Hey, another thing that can be really important, it's not only really, critical that you choose the best partners to work with and find those people, but you also need to be a good partner. And that can mean really taking an honest look at yourself. Be honest about how available you are. Sometimes projects will come up and someone will say, do you want to work with me on this? And you'll be like, oh my God, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then you don't, not even thinking that I am absolutely booked up to here. And then you agree to do it, but then what happens? You're not very available, or you're not getting your work done on time. It's really important that you make sure that you know yourself, you know what your triggers are, what kind of things annoy you. If you know this person has a habit of, say, they're a last minute person and you're a person who needs to, have things done like way ahead of time. You need to think about that. Are you the best person to partner with them? Or should they find a partner maybe that shares their style? So you have to look at yourself. You have to be responsible for your own professional development. If you know this project is going to require a skill that isn't your strongest point, then maybe you need to go and do something to strengthen yourself, or at least be honest. Never oversell yourself to people that you really want to work with and stuff, because you want to go in there and you want to make their partnership good for them. You have that same responsibility. You want to find good partners. Well, you need to be a good partner. So you have to look at these things. Share information and communicate regularly. I will be honest. The first time I partnered with someone, I got this contract and got someone to partner with me. And I had just come out of a job where I was kind of disempowered. So I was still feeling not very sure of myself in terms of my own skills and stuff. So I was being really controlling. I felt like, well, I've got to show that I've got this and I've got to be in control. And I didn't communicate. I feel really bad about my first collaboration, not for me, because the person I partnered with was wonderful. She very appropriately and professionally confronted me when she needed to about, you're not showing respect in these areas. You're not, listening to me. You're not bringing me in. I was a crappy partner, everybody. I'm going to admit that up front. I had a lot to learn about how to share, how to let go, that I didn't need to be the star of the team, that it was okay to admit what I don't know, that people weren't going to look at me and say, oh, she's a dummy or something like that, So I still feel like every time I see this person, they're so, nice, and they come up and chat with me and how you doing? And I feel like they should be walking up going, I've never forgiven you for that terrible partnership. We produced a really great product in the end, and the project to the client went really well. But I admittedly was a really crappy partner. So communicating and demonstrating to your partner that you trust them is critical. And of course, like Anne mentioned, we partner all the time because we just found that we get along really well, but we do have each other's backs and we do communicate. And Anne made a comment about the logo because I'm trying to come up with a new logo. And I sent her samples and she's like, well, first it was my husband telling me he thought one of the people looked like they were pooping in my thing, and then which cracked Anne up. And then Anne was like, I hate this. She literally was like, I love the colors, but I hate this part of it.
I did not say hate.
No, but you made clear, but that was good. The thing is, that's why I sent it to Anne. Exactly why I sent it to her, because I knew she would be honest with me and wouldn't let me put out some crappy logo that looked like it was pooping, according to my husband. I still liked it, but I didn't get that excited over it. She's like, if you're really excited, I was like, no, not really. But that's the point, that honest communication that we have, the fact that I can trust her to tell me reality and not be nice all the time. It's like you really want that critical friend who will be straight with you because she helps my business. By having someone that will be honest like that, that shows me that she really does, want my business to succeed too. So that's why that's what we're talking about when we're talking about that sort of being able to trust and being able to, be okay with that person telling you. You have to trust yourself. In other words, I feel confident enough about my own business thing that if I'm looking at a crappy logo, I know that doesn't mean I'm an absolute idiot. It just means I'm not really good at logo selection. And that's okay. So when it comes to partnerships, making it formal, subcontract project tasks to someone can be the first part. Maybe what you want to do is to get started, give people little pieces of stuff. Say, okay, let me subcontract this person to do a couple interviews or to do a little bit of analysis. See how they work. Do they get things in on time? Do they communicate with you? So just starting with something small. A lot of times it can be just writing a blog together. Maybe say, hey, let's partner on an AEA blog. Something like that. See how you mesh. And then there's fully collaborating on a project, getting into that point where you're both really, both of you are partnering equally on a project like that. And then building an ongoing, potentially informal commitment. That's what Anne and I, we have a pretty informal commitment that a lot of times she's the first person I'll call if I see a big project. Why? Because I know I can work well with her. And I'm just used to like, hey, Anne, you want to work on this? But also because we tend to work along the same types of projects. We both do a lot with collaboratives and stuff like that. So that's another part of it. We know each other's skills. And then you can even go to the formal part of forming a legal partnership. Cheryl's going to talk to you more about that. So there's lots of ways to partner with people without having to go into a lot of legal stuff. Sometimes a new legal entity is the right option. A legal partnership can bring strengths. It can also bring limitations. The best thing is, yeah, this is Cheryl, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, it says Susan on here, but this is actually Cheryl to talk about. So thank God, because this is not my strong suit. It is Cheryl. Cheryl, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning, and for those who came in late, I have two small businesses that I'm managing. One is an independent evaluation firm, and I do a lot of contracting. And I do a lot, on that previous slide, I do subcontracting to people. I do work evenly with people. I do a lot of collaboration in that ways. I also have a legal partnership with someone else, and I want to talk. So everything that has been set up till now applies as well in a legal partnership. So I'm not going to repeat that, but talk about some of the pieces that are unique if you are going to form a partnership with someone. In my case, my regular business, mostly I do children's mental health related research or other things around child and family well-being, not exclusively, but kind of that's the spot where I tend to do the most. And I have a collaborator that I've done a lot of work with around school-based mental health. And he and I had talked for years about maybe forming a partnership. It's different than what I do. So what my second business is the Midwest Center for School Mental Health. And we decided that needed to be something separate. We talked a little bit about, well, maybe I can just do business at, like, maybe I just change mine and we have another name. We decided to form this separate business, which does research and evaluation and needs assessments. We also do a lot of training and consultation around how to build effective school-based mental health projects. So this is not entirely all research and evaluation, but that's one of our main lines of business. The analogies were made about, like, partnership being like dating. It's amazing to me how many things about forming a legal partnership say now we're at marriage. Like, this is making that decision now to move your relationship into that more formal place. And there's a lot of parallels about kind of, think about the pros and cons of dating somebody. You get a lot of the benefits of partnership, collaboration, having fun together, doing things. Now we're making it a legal thing. That makes some things better. It really solidifies that shared commitment, that shared investment in something, but now it's also harder to leave, and things like that. So there are pros and cons. I'm not going to get too much into the business structure. We've talked about that as individual practitioners, all the different ways you can register your business. It's the same with partnerships. You want to do some research in it. That, partnership is not one thing. There are multiple options. Know which one you want. I formed my business and set everything up on my own. I did not use an attorney to do any of it. I did with my partnership. We hired an attorney. It was not very time or cost prohibitive to do so. And I think mostly that's because Mark and I, my partner and I, did a lot of the work together in advance. And we were really ready to formalize it at that point. But bring in a lawyer. It protects both of you at this point to have somebody help you do the filing, help you do the partnership agreements, et cetera. So and I'm certainly happy to talk more about that if people have questions or if you want to contact me later. Okay, next slide. We've talked some about this. Everything that you think about in forming kind of a project partnership, now we're just taking that up a level and really knowing the values and goals, the complementary skills and experience. In this case, when we formed our business, first of all, we wanted to make sure that the business was needed. Is there a role for it? We did a lot of interviewing of stakeholders about, does this business need to exist? There's a Midwest, or excuse me, there's a National Center for School Mental Health on the East Coast. There's a pretty strong center on the West Coast. There's nothing in the middle. We have relationships with both of those entities. And we talked to them about, do we need a middle of the country thing? We talked to local partners. We did a lot of that work. And then we really talked about, is this a thing that we do together? And why are we going to do it together? And for Mark and I, that complementary skills and experience is really critical. Neither of us is capable of running this organization without the other one. I bring a lot more business perspective and the ability to do the contracting and all the stuff that you need to do to run a business. I'm the researcher and evaluator. That is not Mark's strength. He cannot do that. He is a clinician. He works in school-based mental health. So consulting with practitioners is something he brings that. Our work styles are very different. I'm the introvert. I'm the sit at my desk, get the job done. He's the extrovert. He's our networker. He's the one who can go work a room at a conference, while I stand and present the poster or whatever. So, we have very, very complementary skills and experience, and neither of us would have done this on our own. And then that track record. Mark and I worked together for over 15 years before we decided to form the business. We know each other very, very well. There were no surprises. So it doesn't have to be 15 years, but you definitely don't jump into this kind of an arrangement with somebody that you're not fully confident in. Okay, next slide. I am going to post a link in the chat for the document that I found the most helpful when Mark and I were deciding to do this. It is a set of 23 questions that you should ask yourself and each other before you form a business. And a lot of it is about mission, values, roles, like what are you going to do? What am I going to do? What do you want out of this? You know, what are your goals for this? In our case, we both have other jobs. I have my own firm. Mark works full time for our county. Like he's got a day job. So, you know, we've had to talk a lot. Like how much do we want this to grow? Is the idea to make this be the full-time job? Is the goal to make this big enough that we have staff? Is it, you know, at what point do we have to talk about quitting other jobs? You know, like how would we make those decisions? We spent a lot of time really talking about how to do that, you know, in a fair amount of depth. So I don't, why can't I see the chat anymore? I will post it maybe after, but really, really helpful to deeply explore these. Again, the way you would if you were making a decision, a personal commitment to somebody. So that was really very, very important. As part of that, you know, the roles and responsibilities, we also had to talk about, like, are we expecting this to be equal? You know, like, and if it's equal, what does it look like, given that we do bring very different strengths? What if a project comes in that is mostly research and evaluation? Does that mean that I get most of that money, or does that mean that we share it equally, knowing that some of Mark's contribution is the intangible, the networking kinds of things that are unbillable time? And we talked it all through and really had to make those decisions together in a way it's different when you're running a business rather than managing a project. Expectations regarding conflict resolution and decision making. I was surprised how many small business guides online said make sure you always go in as a 51-49% partnership, because so that one of you will have the power to make the decision when you disagree. And Mark and I said, we're not going to do it that way. We are 50-50 partners. We are on paper 50-50. We are in practice 50-50. If we can't decide, we deal with it until we have an agreement. And we don't actually have conflicts. But if we did, that's our commitment to conflict, is that we didn't want to set it up so that one of us can just overrule the other one. We're in it together. We're deciding together. And so that was a fundamental decision that we made against attorney advice. Talk about the money. You know, we all kind of were raised with, like, we don't talk about money and you have to talk about the money. And again, it's a little different than, will you partner with me on this contract? I'm going to give you, you know, 20% of it or 50% of it to do this job. Now we're talking about, what kind of an upfront investment are you willing to make? What are your expectations around what comes out of it? You know, are we going to take debt on as a business? Are we going to purchase things as a business? Are we going to, you know, all those decisions are harder, but important, and you have to talk about it. And you have to go in knowing how the partnership will end. It's a lot more complicated than just, I'm going to fold my business. Now we co-own it. And so what happens if Mark decides he's done? Does that mean that I have to fold? Does that mean that I replace him? Does that mean I have to buy him out? Does that mean he can sell his share? What does it mean? And so what you just need to kind of think through some of those pieces before you make the commitment. Okay. You know, we've talked about the communication, we've talked about the honesty. I think one of the ways that manifests for us, you know, Mark and I are very compatible in a lot of ways. And we have this shared commitment to the business and to each other. And so one of the things that we do, for instance, is that at least once a quarter, we have a meeting where we don't talk at all about projects. You know, we don't talk about what's due, who's doing that training, you know, it's just, how are we doing? You know, and how's our relation, we check in about our relationship a lot. And it's always good, but but it's that proactive. Are you getting what you need from me? Did you wish that I had handled that differently? Were we on the same page in that meeting or not? Was that okay? Should I do anything different? I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? Are the roles fair? Is the distribution fair? Is there anything that we need to talk about? And at least once a quarter we do it. We've committed to doing it in person, even if we were a little distanced, and just really being present with each other and saying, like, how are we? How is our business? Are we going where we want to go? In a way that I don't necessarily do with someone that I'm subcontracting something to. And so that has been really important in that partnership as well. That is it. So I think we're doing questions, and then I'm now getting into the chat, and I'm going to post that link. And I strongly recommend this to anybody who's thinking about certainly a legal partnership, but I think even if you are in that, I want to make a commitment to working with you on a regular basis. Some of the questions won't apply, but this was by far the most helpful thing that I worked through in deciding to really partner with somebody at that level.